Hi everyone, Sharon Moore here. I'm the Deputy Chair, Vice Chair for BCS Women. I was going to say give me any title you like, but maybe we should hold back on that just in case. So welcome to Monday lunchtime with Gillian Arnold. I'm really delighted that Gillian is speaking to us today. Incredibly important subject, and she's also somebody who's inspired me for a long time. So I'm always particularly biased about her, and we're going to learn about bias a bit more today, I think, as part of a larger conversation. So just a very brief introduction from me. BCS Women, a networking group, a specialist group within BCS, the Chartered Institute for IT, that really is there to provide support for women in their careers, provide networking opportunities, all sorts of stuff, actually, you name it. We'll happily get involved and help in that, with a focus obviously in technology and the women who've got careers in technology or who would like to have careers in technology starting at any stage. There is a great team behind the events that happen at BCS Women and the other activities, because it's not just events. We'd be delighted if you'd be interested in joining us. So we do have an AGM happening on the 26th of October in the evening. The invite has not gone out for that yet. For those of you who normally get these things and are panicking, don't worry, it hasn't come yet. We're just giving you a bit of a preview. 26th of October in the evening, mark that out in your diary and join us. We're going to be hearing from the president of BCS. I'm not sure I'm supposed to make this announcement, but I'm doing it anyway. So it'll be really great to hear from her. Anyway, enough from me. All I'd say is get involved. We'll have a great time with Gillian. If you'd like to ask any questions, there will be the chat to do that, and we'll make sure that they get addressed as the session goes on. I'm going to disappear now. You don't need to see me. Let's hear from Gillian. Thank you, Gillian.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you. So I'm not sure whether everybody's aware, but when I left IBM about 10 years ago, I decided to set up a company. And the company was supposed to be about technical people doing services, and it kind of went a bit awry, and it turned into a recruitment company, which was extremely uncomfortable, because coming from a tech environment and moving into recruitment was really difficult. However, when I realized that what I could do was do recruitment for tech women, then all of my passions kind of came together. And one of the things that I realized we need to do as recruiters, that we needed to train our clients, because we could send them loads of women, but they would send them back and say, no, we don't want these. And what we realized was happening was that the middle management were turning down our women because of unmanaged biases. So we also became a training organization. And we've been training ever since. And that training came from some work we were doing inside IBM in about 1999, when we realized that inside IBM, our managers needed training in how to shift their mindset on recruiting women to the technical workforce. That's kind of broadened since then and has become unconscious bias. And actually this year, with so much in the news about Black Lives Matter, it's really important that we get the message out there that people need to manage their biases. But what I thought I would do is talk to you about why middle management in your organizations are so important to your recruiting of more women into tech, to your assessing of women in technical and kind of professional or managerial roles, and incredibly important to giving out the goodies, and we'll come to that later. So, and one thing I should say is that Sharon is deeply involved with this, because we are working on a book on women in tech, and Sharon is working on the chapters around recruiting and assessing women. So she too is inspirational and somebody who knows about this stuff. So you see that you have found the best job you could ever have, and you've spotted this job and you think, right, I'm going to apply for it. Now, what you would hope when you apply for that job is that the company and the middle manager who are involved in recruiting for it have a set of criteria for who would make a perfect individual to fill that role. So if you're going to be a technical project manager, they should perhaps have a list of 20 criteria around the skills that you would need to be the best ever project manager that you could be, or the best ever senior data scientist that you could be. And then you would hope that they would have a panel who would judge you, and there would be males and females. And if you're a person of color, you'd be really hoping there'd be a person of color on that panel as well, and that they would judge you purely against those 20 criteria. And they may even be testing you, and you should be glad about that. Whilst it might feel difficult that they might test you or give you case studies, actually that's got to be better than them working on gut instinct. So I've got some questions for you. I want you to open the chat, and I want you to just type in when I say into the chat. So the first question is, if a manager has not managed their bias and they are presented with these 6 candidates, which candidate might they think is best for the job and why? And you can see that these are the salaries that the person is saying they have had previously and looking for you to at least match. So which candidate on the chat do you think they would be most likely to think was the best? Now, the fact that the chat is completely silent worries me just a little. Oh, well done. Oh, thank you, Sharon. So 67K. And do you want to type in why you think 67K would attract you the most as a manager? And anyone else? Anyone vote for the 90K or the 74K? Sharon, I'd hazard a guess that the 67K is the highest of the females. So you're voting for a female and you're voting for the highest. Yeah, I get that. So definitely men have much higher salaries than females. And we know that because of the gender gap reporting. But we select often, and this is one of the biases that we might see. It's called an anchoring bias. We would often select the highest salary, thinking that that might be the person who would be the best because they're telling us that they've got a higher salary. Not that they were originally recruited on a very low salary, or that they're working in a part of the country which gives really low salaries. So I've got another question here, and let's see if we can ask the next question. So why isn't this working? Come on. Ah. Right. Okay. So the next question is, we've got a bunch of people who are working at companies at the moment. So I'm not going to use the chat because I almost feel it's not quite working. So here we've got a bunch of people who are working for a bunch of companies, and we're going to take a gut decision on which person is best because we're not using a set of criteria to check them out. So if I wasn't managing my process for hiring and I wasn't managing my biases, I might think that the people who were coming out of Lloyd's would be the best for a banking environment. I might think that the people coming out of Google might be the best for a creative or for a technical environment. or Facebook might give me a social media edge. But actually, none of these definitely have to be true. This is about our anchoring biases. And in fact, it could be that the person from Auto MSP is the best person for our job. But unless we've got a set of criteria that we are effectively managing against, we're never going to know that. And this is one that really bugs me. This is a bunch of people reporting that they've got a 2-1 or a 2-2 or a BTEC or a first. And typically managers will select the first, and then they'll go for a 2-1, and they're unlikely to look at anyone who's got a 2-2 or a BTEC. But actually, we need managers to understand that just because you've got a first doesn't mean you're the best person for the job. And yet that might be the first impression that this manager has got from you. So they've looked at your CV, they've seen a first, and they've thought, best person for the job, where actually the best person for the job might be the person with the BTEC. And the last one, district. So if you are hiring locally, the district in which you are living or in which you are born can really, really sway what a manager thinks about you. And they won't even know that that bias has taken effect. So in the town where I live, there are some areas, some districts that you might not want to live in. There's a district called Sheepridge, and you might, if you hadn't used proper criteria for the hiring, think as the candidate from Sheepridge arrived, oh, well, he's not going to be any good, or oh, well, she's not going to be any good. This is the anchoring bias, but actually that could be your top candidate, and we really need to think about these things. It's not just about doing the hiring. So you would hope that in the hiring they've got a proper scale, they've got a proper testing regime, they've got a proper way to select the best candidate because they've got some firm criteria. You would hope that. However, it's not just that, but this happens in assessment too. There's an amazing book. It's called oh, now I'm pushed here. What Women Want, I believe. And it talks about a thing called Prove It Again, where women are asked to prove over and over again that they are good enough. So they get to assessment, they have done their all and achieved amazing things during the year. They've met all their objectives, and the manager assesses them. And then they say, and the woman says, hey, what about I get a promotion this year? Or see that job over there? I really need that job. I could do that job. And the manager at that point says, ah, yes, you probably could. Well, what about we'll see if you can do this again next year. And if you manage to prove it again next year, then we can look at giving you the promotion. This happens to women an awful lot. Assessment is really key. Some of the things that happen at assessment are things like managers will see mothers who are parents as less committed than fathers who are parents. And there's certainly a big deal about people who behave in a way that is not expected. So we women we do this to other women. So those women who we notice are really trying to get on, they know all the football scores, they laugh with the blokes, they've joined the boys club, we're likely to kind of look down on them a bit or think that they're hard bitten and give them titles that perhaps we shouldn't. And this is because we as women are applying our biases. We're giving these other women penalties because they aren't behaving like women. And actually, all they're doing is they've seen that there are some ways in which men can succeed, and they're emulating those in the hope of being able to succeed too. Some of you will have seen this. This is a piece of research, and I do use this a lot because I think it's incredibly powerful. So there's a woman called Virginia Valian, and she wrote a book called Why So Slow. She is well worth reading, but you can't get the book anymore. You have to get it on secondhand through Amazon or whoever you get your secondhand books from. But Virginia Valian said, in the US, women are not appraised in the same way as men are appraised. And there was an outcry when she said this. And so what happened was 3 of her PhD students, Martel, Lane and Emmerich, decided to create a computer model. And you can, if you put their names into Google, you can find the computer model and the algorithms that they used. So what they did was they created an 8-layer organization. And at the start of using the computer model, or the algorithm, they had 50-50 males and females in the organization, with the executive layer ranked at number 8 in the organization. And what they wanted to do, and what they eventually did, was they wanted to run it 20 times to emulate a 20-year career. And the way they built the model, every time they ran it, there would be 15% attrition at each layer. And the people who had got the best assessments would move up from the layer below to backfill those places that had been emptied by the attrition. And then they put a tiny bias against the females in the assessment algorithm or the appraisal algorithm. And so it was kind of like assessing the women out of 101 and assessing the men out of 100. And then they ran it, and they ran it 20 times. And at the end of that run, the organization had more women at the bottom. It had a big stuck middle of women and far fewer women at the top. And you can imagine, because of the way the maths works, that it would have got worse and worse, and we would have seen a more extreme picture had they run it for 30 years. But this is a tiny, tiny bias against the women in that kind of model organization. And so that tiny bias could be a middle manager not believing that a woman was ambitious because that wasn't in his or her experience, or not believing that a woman who had children was fully committed to the job. That's how small a bias needs to be to make an impact on those individuals. And then I said that assessment's really important because one of the things that happens at assessment is that is the gateway to giving out the goodies. So the goodies are things like, as a salesperson or as a manager interacting with customers regularly, you might be given the top flight customers, or you might not. And so that tiny bias might stymie you in your future career because you never got to the top flight customers. And then the goodies further down the line depend on what really turns you on and what motivates you. So it could be that it was the big bonus from working with the top flight customer that really motivated you. Or it could be that it was greater visibility or, you know, bigger opportunities. But at each case, assessment lets you through there. And that's not just assessment on an annual basis. That could be that you're having assessment on a monthly or 3-monthly basis. But each of those will stop people from getting through if there are biases in the middle management layer. So, you know, other kinds of goodies, you get a mentor, you get to go on a special assignment, you get to, because of that, create your own patent. And, you know, that these things are really important, and we need to make sure that they come to us equally with the males in the organisation. Now I'm going to try and run a film, and so Sharon, can you let me know whether this is working or not? And this is a BBC shareable film from a series called No More Girls and Boys, Can Our Kids Go Gender Free? And it's looking at bias all the way, and this is particularly looking at bias, but what I'm going to talk about afterwards is the cycle of socialization, and this really demonstrates the beginning of the cycle of socialization. It does have subtitles, so even if you can't hear it, then you should be able to see it.
Look at this. Look at this academic. So good done at it. There's a good girl. You're a good girl. You're Sophie. Look, what does this say? Sweet dreams. Sweet dreams. Ooh, look at this, Sophie. Did she like that pink dolly the best?
If I were to tell you actually that Sophie would,
Ah,
does that change anything?
I maybe thought, oh, this is a little girl, so I have to give her little girl things.
Hello. 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 Come on. What's this one? Oh, what's that one do? That robot. Oh, right one. What does this one do? You've gone for, you could say, boy toys.
Possibly in my subconscious. For me, I was just going for what was around me. In fact, my subconscious was automatically playing a comedy that I was.
If I tell you that he is actually a girl.
Really?
Yes.
Oh wow, that's really interesting. I suppose it's because of the stereotype.
And then that changed your behaviour
Yes,
towards
it
the
did.
child.
It did.
And your behaviour
can't
was
mind, yeah,
quite
it did.
directive.
1, 2, 3. Beep, 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 beep. Can I see my robot?
Robot. The basket. I think she's making differences in the child and the other ones have been felt.
That really astounded me because I thought that I was somebody that had a really open mind.
Surprise. So I automatically went for the pink fluffy toy because it was a girl, so I was sort of stereotyping.
I've always thought I was rather more open-minded than that, and I would think, you know, these are children's toys, whatever the gender.
It will make me think the next time I'm with a child, so my niece or my nephew, to make sure that I am actually being sort of fair and equal with all of them, and just giving each child an opportunity to just be whoever they are.
This is an amazing program. It still is available on YouTube, and it's 2 50-minute, I think, sections which show how we are socialized to understand what male roles and female roles are in the world, in the working world, in, you know, just the day-to-day world. But it's interesting that your manager or the managers in your organization will have learned what girls' roles are and what female roles are and what girls are good at, what females are good at, without really having thought about it quite deeply enough. There's a woman called Bobby Harrow. She created something called the cycle of socialization. So we're going to start this at the top middle with our own birth in society. And we've got no choice who we're born as. So we're not able to choose whether we're born black or white or male or female or gay or straight, or, you know, we just don't have a choice. And we don't have a choice whether we are born in a posh district of Glasgow or Edinburgh or indeed Huddersfield, or whether we are born in the worst district. We just don't have a choice. And then we're socialized at home. So our parents tell us what the world is like. Just like the film we just saw, they tell us what to expect. They show us by handing us a ball to play with, or a robot to play with, or a fluffy toy or a doll to play with, what roles we should expect in the world. And their friends and our young friends kind of reinforce this. And this is why often girls kind of end up wearing pink, even though you as a parent said, we're not going to give our children, our little girls, pink clothes. We're going to put them in everything. They will come back from school with their early socializations around, I need to wear pink and I want to be a fairy. They also see role models. They see role models like their aunts talking about how they can't do maths. And they see that they get messages like, oh, ask your dad will help you with your maths homework. And so they take on very subtle messages, and we take on those subtle messages that say we can't do those things and we can't be techies. And they pick up stories. So there was an amazing Observer piece of research 2 years ago, oh no, last year, and they took the 100 top children's books and they looked for how many male leads and how many female leads and how many black characters in the top 100 children's books. And 70% of the leads in the top 100 children's books were male, and 30% were female. And for the children of colour, there were only 5 lead characters who were of colour in the top 100 children's books, and 3 of those were robbers. How, you know, that works on your own psyche is really important. So then as you move into the world, if you're a female and you notice that there aren't that many women in tech, or you're a male and you notice there aren't that many women in tech, then that becomes the way the world is. And you don't expect to push against that. So as a male manager hiring the next data scientist, they may not believe that women fit into that unless somebody talks them through managing their biases. Just as if you're a person of colour and you never see anyone who is high up in the legal system, or you very rarely see anyone high up in the government who is also a person of colour, you might start to believe that you don't belong there too. And that will give you a sense of internalized oppression. So you'll be angry about that and you'll feel disempowered. And this is, as women, we know how we feel about not getting equal pay or not being equally considered for the top roles. And so for those people who are privileged, then they may feel guilty but they may feel defensive, and that again needs to be managed as we teach people about their biases. But we can stop the cycle. Most thinking people can change their biases and not take racism and sexism back into the family home to kind of teach their children, because this cycle will keep going round. So what companies need to do to fix some of this, and this is not just about women, but about people of colour, about different age groups, about people with differing abilities. It's about all of us. First off, we need to monitor. We need to monitor the people we have in our organisations, how many people of colour, and how quickly are they becoming managers in our organisations. At the moment, the Chartered Institute for Management, Chartered Management Institute, are saying that men are 40% more likely to be promoted to be a manager than women. So we need to understand that in our own organisations, and that is going to give us a starting point. And many organisations will have done this, but the things they're going to be monitoring are the protected characteristic: how many women by band and their seniority, or how many people of colour by band and their seniority, or how many people are leaving by whether they are people of colour, whether they're people with disabilities, whether they're women, whether they're a certain age group, whether they are GLBT. And we need to think about a much broader list than I'm showing here to give us a true picture of what's happening within the organisation. And then we need to acquire an extremely senior person to sponsor us. Round the corners of these, I've got some thoughts on the ways in which we need to run these. So we need to create debate within the organisation about bias. We need to create debate about equality and inclusion across the organisation. And we absolutely must not make it the victim's problem. And here am I talking as a woman about women in tech, and that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm making it a women's problem, but it isn't. And it needs to be that men are involved, and they are allies all the way. And there's a lot of information on the web at the moment about how allies should work and the great ways in which they can support us. And we need to be really, really proactive around this work. One of the things that can help you with acquiring a very senior sponsorship for diversity and inclusion is understanding what turns the chief exec on. So apart from their wife or their husband, what's going to keep the CEO awake at night? Well, it's usually going to be creating profits, but all of that comes from beating the competition, having unique selling propositions, being able to offer broader innovation or better customer sat, greater brand awareness. I'm not going to go all through that because I generally tend to, but what I would suggest to you is that you my mouse doesn't work on these two screens, so I'm sorry, it's going to take me a minute to get it over there. Right, how to influence the CEO is to talk to them about the business case for diversity. And then again, whilst I'm saying that it's not just our issue here, you are going to have to let them know how it feels from where you stand. But I'm not going to talk all through the business case for diversity. I've done it before, but I don't need to anymore. There is so much data out there. Things like, you know, can we get better customer satisfaction? Can we get better productivity? Can we get much better innovation? And the answer from all of these reports is yes, we can, as long as we have diverse teams and as long as we listen to them when they tell us what their new and unique ideas are. And the kind of main message I want to get across here is that when you've done all that, you have to bring the middle management with you. And that is key. So whilst you've got the senior sponsorship and the chief exec or whoever is in charge of the project understands the need, until the middle management understand it, then we're not going to get anywhere. And they are the ones in every organization that you need to get to and need to challenge. I'd hoped that we would be able to talk, but I'm kind of not sure that we can on this facility. But I just want to talk a little bit about inclusive language. And this is just as a way to talk about how easy it is for us to slip into a non-inclusive state. So if we look at the words down the right-hand side, if you visualize the stereotypes that for you sit with the word girl, then it could be that you imagine a girl to have pigtails or a short skirt and socks and be coming from school, or she might be very young, she might have a doll, she might be wearing pink. But when your manager says guys and girls, what your manager is imposing on the audience that is listening to her or to him is all of those stereotypes. And with those stereotypes also goes the impression that a girl is not mature, could not be a CEO because they're not mature. And they are, you know, we're following all the stereotypes that sit with the word girl. Equally, the stereotypes that sit with the word lady are things like ladies who lunch, ladies wear big floppy hats, ladies go to Henley Regatta, ladies garden. Are ladies the stereotypical people we would expect to be leading companies, to be the chief technical officer, to be the chief financial officer? The stereotypes when somebody says gents and ladies or men and ladies treat us differently, and that language really matters inside the office. So whilst it might feel uncomfortable to address people as not guys, because that guys means blokes, and I know that the language is changing, but guys still sits as a semantic which means blokes, and girls is the other thing they use, or ladies is the other thing they use, and that is putting us at a disadvantage. So these are some of the things that we need to teach our middle managers about, and teach them instead to say hi everyone in their emails, or hi all, or team, but to treat us equally. One of the things I'd suggest then is get them trained. So if you think about training these people, consider training them around equality, sexism. Racism's really key at the moment, and there is a big interest in doing it. So we should ride that, and we should get the training in there that shows them that women can be leaders too. And, you know, make it appropriate. Then it doesn't cost the organization an arm and a leg. So make sure the executive team get the training first, because they will bring on the middle managers. And this is something we did at IBM, and I think it made a difference. But it's absolutely important that they bring out the message to the rest of the organization that they need to manage their biases, and they need to understand themselves and be much more self-analytical about the way that they treat us. And then in some organizations, the issues are so bad that you're not just training middle managers to be better or more inclusive managers, but you're actually having to go against the mainstream of the culture. And the way that you would fix that is firstly to analyze the environment. So you might do an audit around how people feel, a cultural audit. So that this is the cat here, a cultural audit tool, and ask a department how it feels to work here, and do they feel that they're treated equally? And maybe get staff together, so either questionnaires or get people together in groups to examine how they feel about working in the environment, and do studies on the core values and the core culture within the organisation. And HR needs to be involved, but the mainstay here is to get the executive board on stream as well with this, and they should then agree the direction for shifting the culture, because a company culture is deeply, deeply embedded and really important to the way that the company functions. And so they are going to have to agree to either add another cultural strand or to remove something that is to the detriment of the group. And then you embed via training, you consult again with HR, and in this case, you might be offering training to the women to say, oh, well, you know, here, have some confidence building training. But absolutely, this is not the female problem, or this is not the people of colour who have the problem. This is the problem of those people not managing their biases. So there's a lot to consider when you're doing this. And finally, the thing that I would say is, if you haven't finished doing this transition yet, or you are just started, make sure that it is a proper business project with proper business objectives that sit within the KPI or the annual objectives of the senior managers in the organisation, because it's they who will drive it, and they will drive it not because it feels like the morally correct thing to do, but they'll drive it because it sits in their annual objectives. And to me, that's one way, whilst it feels really draconian, it's one way of getting people to work on this. Okay, I'm kind of done. I don't know how we could ask questions, and perhaps Sharon or Mandy might tell how that might be possible. However, if it's not, my email address is there, and I'm quite happy to take questions from you. So we could try. Let's have a look in this questions box, see if we've got any questions.
So I was going to say to you, Gillian, when it turns out that others don't get to see the chat function that we get to see. So some of the responses were popped in there, but I didn't spot that until it was too late, and there's no point interrupting you. So yeah, if anyone does have any questions, if they want to pop them in that questions panel, then that means that Gillian can answer straight away rather than later. Oh, somebody else is saying the chat works for them, so it's a bit of a multiple experience. Thanks, Elizabeth. Two different. Maybe it depends on what browser you originally did. I have no idea. Maybe be Mac versus Windows versus Linux versus something else versus mobile versus desktop. Looks like you're getting an easy time of it.
Yeah, I think I bored everybody to death because I can't see any questions. Oh, now I've got something that says language is so important, but it's not big enough for me to see it. Oh, can you see it, Sharon?
I can't see that. No. Or is it in the chat? No, I can't see it. If it's in your question, click on it. Then underneath you'll get the.
Oh right. Oh right. Inclusive language is so important, and thank you. And I can't see who it was.
Lindsay. I can see that now. Yep.
Okay. But yes, I agree. Inclusive language is hugely important, and I don't think our managers understand that. And I do think that I came away from years and years in working in private companies feeling beaten down, and I think that the inclusive language was part of that beating. So yeah. Yes, the lecture is going to be recorded, and I'm writing a paper on attracting more girls into compute. Yes, you can contact me, and I'm just trying to trying to get at these questions, and I can see one line of each questions, and and so let's see if I can get further down. Oh, and you put all your 90Ks in there. Oh, thank you all. So I just couldn't see those. Right.
I'm sorry, I was on mute there. Paul has asked, can you tell us a bit more about anchoring bias?
Well, so anchoring bias is simply where those diagrams where you would anchor to maybe the salary or maybe the location that they came from, or and so it stops you getting past that. So, you know, unless you've got a set of criteria that say, ask a question that gives me some real feedback about how this individual managed a project that was failing, and the person gives you feedback that says, this is the situation, and this was the task, and these were the actions I took, and these were the results. Unless you get that, then you could be still anchored to the fact that they came from a poor environment, or that they had previously got a really rubbish salary. And so so there are loads of biases that are built into particularly to things like interviewing, like, you know, a halo bias. So this is a single great quality that stops me seeing the rest. So the most gorgeous person in the world walks into the room and you cannot see past how gorgeous that person is. So this is the halo bias. And then there's a bias called the attribution bias. So that is where you think of yourself, I succeed because I'm really skilled. And when you fail, you think of yourself, oh yeah, but you know, circumstances were terrible and I had really bad luck. But the way you attribute those things to other people is that you think of them, oh, well, you know, they failed because they didn't have the skill. And you won't give them the option of having bad luck or, you know, a bad circumstance for doing the work. So there are loads and loads of biases that sit around recruiting and particularly interviewing people. And yeah, so now I'm trying to work through these questions one line at a time. And I'm really sorry, I don't know how.
I have another one for you. I'll get them through the Gillian, don't worry. So there's the last one. I'd say it's for you. It's not. It's actually for all of us to take away and see what we can do about it. So someone's pointed out that BCS can be guilty of using the term girls. Is this something that HQ can review? So yeah, they definitely should be reviewing that. So we will take that away as something to be addressed. I hadn't noticed, and I'm a bit disappointed by that. Sometimes we do talk about girls, but we're genuinely talking about girls at school, and then you know, the fact that we want to help them with their careers. You have a thank you. So thank you from Naz, and a thank you in return, Naz, for attending, and Chrissy has said thanks for about sharing the paper as well. Somebody's asked about having the presentation slides. Now there will be the recording for people to view afterwards as well. Gillian, I'm not sure how you feel about the slides being shared.
Well, if you've got the recording, you've got it all anyway, so that's
exactly.
fine. Yeah.
There we go. And that is everything. Apart from the previous comments about going for 90,000 or 67,000 and all those kind of things.
Right. Well, thank you everybody for listening in. And yeah, feel free to talk to me. I'm kind of quite open. All except Naz, because I know I can talk to you anytime. So thank you all.
Brilliant. And in that case, yeah, if there's nothing else and nobody else sneaks in one at the last minute, I just want to say, we've got a couple of comments. Oh, there you go. Oh, there's a comment from Anne-Marie about a book now being available. Virginia Vallen's book is now available on Amazon. The MIT have republished it. So there we go. And yeah, Christine, thank you very much. A thanks from BCS Northern Ireland. More things. Oh, there's another one. These things keep popping up. It seems to be in a random order. Follows everyone. I left a company where I was the only female manager, and since I left, all the new recruits have been white middle-class men. There's still one female developer there, but I can't see any way to help her. Yeah, I've seen that in other organisations where women have left as well. And
the thing to do is to if you can help the woman, get her to talk to her local diversity person or local HR person and say, look, you know, have you noticed that we've got a predominance of white people in the organization, or white managers, or we've got a predominance of male managers? And is it something that we should be working on? You know, just to nudge them into action.
Yeah, and another thank you from Eileen. I owe you an email, Eileen, so thank you very much. She's involved in GSE UK, so thanks for her insightful presentation there. Anne-Marie's put in another comment just to say that use Textile to remove gender bias in job adverts. It's a really good resource.
Yeah,
there's a link. So what?
There's Gender Decoder as well. So Textio, I can't make Textio work where it is free, whereas the Gender Decoder one is free. So
there we go. Great. So I'm hesitant to start thanking you in case there's something else. Oh, here we go. Another one. Yep. Yeah, there we go. So largely it's just a big thanks to you, Gillian. That's been incredibly useful. I've taken notes as always. For those of you who've attended, we are planning on sending a quick survey around. We're not normally very good at doing that, but we really must get better at it. We want to learn how to be better and get more appropriate, get the best way to get information out to everyone. So where there might be a few links and things, we might pop that in with the email about the survey too.
Oh, so, yeah. So Cornelia's just reminding us that this woman called Frances Grundy has just written a book. She's just published it around women in tech. So Cornelia, I bet you've put that on the BCS Women website anyway, but I'm sure Sharon will have the details as well.
Great.
I think that's it. Good.
That's it.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Gillian. Hope everyone has a great week. Keep in touch. See you at the AGM on the 26th.
Bye. Bye. Hello. Hi, Mandy. You still there? No.
I'm still here. We've still got a few people that look like they're in the chat. That's why I wasn't saying anything.
Yeah, no, I was just hoping Mandy would tell me why this thing didn't work. I can only see one line of the questions.
Yeah, so there should be a box underneath it that shows you the depth of, but I think the way that the questions came in was really weird because it looks like they were all done, and then I clicked on something else, and then suddenly it refreshed. So doesn't seem to be automatically refreshed.
So I can see the box underneath, but because I can only see one line of the question, I can't tell where it's not. I can't even read the question, if you see what I mean. I can't see that the question is a question. So it's very strange.
Yeah. I know what you mean. For me, I can see it once if I click on the question, then it appears in the box underneath.
Yeah. So that's good. 20 people on a lunchtime call's not bad at all.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. It's kind of, I think that the days of having thousands of people on these things are gone because there's just so much demand for everyone's time. And we did have a lot of people ask about recording it, so that's a really good sign, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was really good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That if you haven't seen it, that BBC programme is well worth watching.
Yeah, I saw that clip. I'd seen it. I was just astonished. The one thing I was like, yes, when my first niece was born, I tried to buy her a mix of what might be typically girls' toys and boys' toys. So she got a football and stuff like that. I mean, she wasn't even one, so it was a soft, cuddly football, but it was a football. And she got a toy car and stuff like that. And yeah, it's really interesting. Just and kind of scary as well.
So I got a message from Naz. She said, "Good luck, G. I'm ready and waiting." Honestly, she's so much fun.
Brilliant. Did I meet Naz at a Wise Awards dinner?
You may well
could that be
have.
possible?
Yeah, absolutely. Uncontrolled. Amazon pie. So she's kind of enormous and really tall. Not enormous fat, but just enormous all over.
Yeah.
Just a big woman.
Yes.
And
Yes.
yes, she did. And she stopped working for me and went off to America, and she's back. And unfortunately, she's not working for me. But, right.
Right, I better go because I need to go and do my other call.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank
you. I
Thank
really, really appreciate that. Have a great week.
All right. Andrew, take care. Bye.
Bye.